name's James Rubio. I'm a painter from New York City. I've been painting for about 20 something years. I like, uh, I just like keeping it funky. I really like bright colors. I like love and happiness. um, and I also really love music.
So, I want to talk about the project you did while you were in Victoria. It was called Contemporary Adult Music.
Uh-huh.
How did that project come together?
Um, well, it was like kind of it was just a really fun thing, you know. Contemporary adult music started when Chris and Chris decided to come up with these. We just first we decided to collaborate with each other. We traveled together a few years, a few times for a few years, and then we decided to collaborate with each other. And
So,
it
Chris,
started.
I'm going to interrupt you. Who's Chris?
Chris Yarrington. He was my collaborator with contemporary adult music. I met him through the Antagonist Art Movement, and so we would do these antagonist trips. Um, and it just kind of the idea kind of came from like we were working on these ideas like in the bar. We would go and we would meet up at the bar and we would draw out these kind of like collaborative drawings, which we decided to kind of create a form, like an idea that wasn't really either of ours. And we gathered inspiration from Henry Darger's work, which was really from doll patterns and
Mm.
dress patterns for children, from the illustrations of dress patterns and clothing patterns that were for kids from like the 50s. And we decided to kind of like use that symbolism or like those patterns aesthetically, you know. And then also at the same time, this fight between good and evil and like love and kind of death or love and pain, and that love could prevail, was the idea of the contemporary adult music. The word contemporary adult music, we thought of just the music that absolutely was terrible. It's actually called adult contemporary music, and we thought of this music as like the music that nobody vibes with. And I don't know why that became our moniker, because I think everybody could vibe with love, and I think everyone could vibe with the opposite of love, which is like pain, or which is also a part of love. But I think that you could kind of vibe with that, but nobody can really vibe with contemporary adult music. Um, and so, but luckily for us, contemporaryadultmusic.org or .com was available. Contemporary adult music Instagram was available, because I guess nobody could really get down with that. And in a way, this kind of copy pasting work that we were doing, where we were making these stencils and then putting them on everything, was was kind of like a contemporary adult music, if you will. It was just kind of like this thing where it's like, oh, you can put this picture on something and it works. And you know what was so crazy about it is like every one of them that we did looked great. You know what I mean? Even though it was kind of just cut and paste. You're just trying to go for like video game colors, and specifically regular Nintendo NES colors.
Okay, so what
Which
are those? What are the video game colors like?
they're like the colors of my childhood. It's like you would play this video game and you'd have this like bright blue sky that was like this impossible blue sky. And like it's just like these neons and bright like palette of, I don't want to say they were like if I could say what they, you know, what they are is they are kind of neons, but they're not exactly neon. It's like a neon from a starts with a P, pastel. They're
Pesto.
like pastel neons, pasty neon colors that are completely more vibrant than any color that you'll ever see in real life, but they're also muted in a way to not be a total neon.
Yeah.
That's a pastel neon, and that's like the color of Nintendo. All the games were kind of pastel neons, or a lot of them were. And so that was kind of the vibe, was to be like reminiscent of a digital childhood, um, and kind of like this childlike, like everything kind of was drawn from this like digital childhood of good versus evil, and ultimately like one side is right and one side is wrong. There's not a whole lot of gray area in those video games at that time, and in a lot of those TV shows that like I grew up watching, or we grew up watching. There's always like a good and there's a bad, and there's like obviously like there's a very clear um, thing, but also the colors are just so outrageously joyous, but like a muted joy. And that's kind of where we came from with that, and
And
that was the whole concept, you know.
yeah,
The
and these
idea,
stencils have like rainbows. Sometimes there's rainbows shooting out of
yeah,
their eyes or they're
the
hanging out.
rainbows were supposed to be like lasers, that was like a rainbow, like a love laser that could cut through evil.
Yeah.
um so what that came out as was like severed heads with rainbows like flying out of their eyes, that could just like cut through all of this, all of the bad in the world. And
And a lot of times the heads were impaled, right? And
yeah,
stabbed
yeah, but they still
multiple.
projected, they still could see the truth, you
Mhm.
know. They were still alive in the way that cartoons are alive after they're dead.
So you have this concept, you and Chris, who went by Crispy, right, at the time. You had
Still does, yeah.
still does, yeah. You have this concept that you guys created together. Was it for the project in Victoria, or was it just something you guys were doing at the time and then you guys went to Victoria? How did that?
Yeah, Victoria was just kind of one of these things, had nothing to do with what we were. I mean, we just were doing our thing. The first actual piece that we collaborated on, I mean, the very first ones where the girls weren't involved. Actually, the very first one was like we decided to make a plaque for like the LSD Olympics, if that was ever to be a thing. So we made like a first place plaque of the LSD Olympics. Um,
Can
and
we
then
can we talk about that for a little bit? What is the LSD Olympics? And like, is that
I have
something you
no
made
idea.
up?
It's,
Okay.
I literally have, you know, it's just something we came up with. It didn't exist.
And how did you envision the LSD Olympics happening and how would
I,
you
I,
get first place?
I don't think that we ever thought about it. Wasn't that, you know, you're imagining a real idea here. This was an idea of what could be an idea, you know what I mean? There wasn't really much beyond that, but that was like probably where we came up with this thing, and we're like, oh, we really should push this Vivian girls angle with this LSD Olympic. That was the first one that came out with the girl that had like these eyes, but it was really more like a Medusa character at that time. um so the very first work we started doing was like that, and then there was this kind of duality. We were like really into this idea of a duality thing. The first show we did together was actually in Mexico, in Chihuahua, and Arturo Vega invited us to do a show with him at the Casa Redonda, um, which was like this museum thing. It was really cool, and Arturo was like the star of the show. But then we had like a little wall off to the side where we had all these collaborative paintings, and we were making like these. He was kind of obsessed with this 33 eyes thing, and we were making these. Like I had a grinder, so we were cutting up all these quarters, and taking just the eyes out of the quarters and like making these like big things with quarters and like, and that's really kind of how the collaboration started, was this like duality but with quarters and these eyes and like money and like this. It was just really weird. And then it became like, then we had this idea for like the LSD Olympics, which kind of gave way to the Vivian Girls idea, or the contemporary adult music thing, and then we decided to name it. But the very first actual mural that would be anything like we did in Texas was done in New York City on Second Street. And when we did that, it was like the summer of 13, or the spring of 13. And that thing just blew up. Like we were like, like that thing blew up. That got so many likes, so many hits. We got over 1 million likes. There were fashion companies doing photo shoots in front of it. Um, and it was like really just blowing up at that time. So then Ethan, a friend of ours, was doing a movie. He had a movie in the film festival in Victoria, which we were in, but it had nothing to do with what we were doing at the time. Um,
Which movie was he showing in Victoria?
I have no idea. I want to say it was Dolls of Lisbon, but it was like a film festival in Victoria.
Hmm.
So um, the Victoria, the film festival decided to fly us out to do a mural in Victoria. And
Okay.
so that's how we did the mural there. But we had already kind of established our exactly what we were going to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without creating that exact mural ahead of time, we'd kind of already been working together, and we figured out a formula for that space.
And you did,
So
how many murals did you end up doing in Victoria?
we only did two, and on two separate trips. So that time we did one, and that one was the very first one was behind the Children's Museum, and which we thought was really cool because then the kids that would go to the Children's Museum, we just figured like every kid going to school would have to end up at the Children's Museum at some point
Hmm.
during their, K through 6 education. By the time they were in 6th grade, they would have seen our mural. And believe it or not, we actually have like a cult following now from Victoria because they grew up watching our mural and they would go there and they thought it was so cool, but nobody ever knew what it was. One of the things about contemporary adult music, or CAM as it kind of became known, was that we never signed it. We wouldn't sign our thing, and maybe we would. I don't think we signed anything. I don't think we ever signed our name or our moniker. Maybe we did. I don't know, but I don't think we did.
Remember at the time you mentioned you wanted to be anonymous, that this
We
was
kind of wanted it to be anonymous,
an
right? Yeah,
anonymous project you guys were doing. Yeah.
yeah. We kind of wanted it to be like, it was like this really, in hindsight, kind of a dumb idea that, oh, this is going to be anonymous and people will just know what it is because it's the only thing that looks like this. So we don't have to worry about putting a name to it. Um,
But
and
wait, so when you came up with, how old were you at that time? Like what year was this?
I mean, I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
I was probably like 26 or 27. Um, but yeah, I was in my 20s. I don't know how old Crispy was. He's a little older than me. But at the time, we thought it would be really cool just to be anonymous because it was pretty obvious the style, and we didn't think we kind of wanted to be the opposite of the internet too. Like, didn't want every other street artist was trying to put their Instagram handle and trying to like really promote their street art, and we didn't see a point to it. We just thought like it would just promote itself. And the goal of the whole thing was never really to become famous, but to like kind of maybe create an idea that that nobody knew what it really was. You know what I mean? The
Mhm.
goal was mystery. It wasn't fame. Um, so that's probably why we never got famous, as we weren't really going for that. but we were just having fun with it. We ended up going, being able to travel a lot of places doing these weird murals. Each one was different, but the overall idea was love and peace over like war and hate, and over pain and hate, and love and peace always prevailed. And so the idea was that there would be one girl that symbolized kind of peace, and the other girl was kind of like always trying to just destroy her, in a way a lot like the cartoons that I grew up watching were very much like this. This was my childhood. Was there's a protagonist and an antagonist, and the protagonist is always like this, like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner.
Yeah,
The
I was thinking
Roadrunner is just
Looney Tunes.
doing
Looney
its own thing, but it's
Tunes.
every one of those cartoons. I've actually started watching them more now because there's a channel here that just shows classic cartoons, and it's like extremely violent. There's always like one person that's like, or one cartoon that's like really going after the other one for no reason, either jealousy or whatever that emotion is, and the other one always wins. The good always wins.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like this. I don't know. It's a tried and true idea that good always wins or whatever. Not necessarily the best storytelling, but they were really fun, and the whole market towards the for these this artwork was to for people to remember their youth, or for the youth to see something really fun and really exciting instead of a plain brick wall, or instead of just something. And the whole idea also was just like it wasn't commercial work. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
wasn't promoting anything that anyone couldn't have. Um, the
right.
idea of happiness, and it's a free thing. And that was also part of the idea of, well, we don't need to put our name on it because you can enjoy this work without thinking, without a ego.
And it kind of worked because you told me the story. You had moved on with this project. The project, it led its life and then it came to a natural end. And you and Crispy did other things. And
Yeah.
then like, what was it? A while ago? It was recently somebody reached out to you. And how did that happen? And this kind of came back to the surface.
Um, Instagram. Somebody found me on Instagram. A collector found me on Instagram, and he's from Victoria, and he said, are you the person who did this work?
Hmm.
And I said, yeah, that was me. It was a long time ago, but yeah, that was us. And he said, oh my God, I've been looking for you for like my entire life because I grew up, like, I loved these murals. They were in my hometown, and it was always a mystery because nobody knew anything about who made them and why they were there. But they were there, and this guy actually has multiple tattoos of our murals on his body. So there's like a level of engagement, at least with that collector or that fan. There's like a level of engagement that we reach that like kind of totally influenced his life, and we didn't, it's something we never would have thought about. But it's not just him; he's got a lot of other friends that are buying this work. And we still have like, I mean, I still have like all the posters and all the stuff from that time period, but it's just kind of a project that we shelved. We kept going on with our lives, but we still it for I don't know why, but yeah. Yeah, people are still very into it, and I'm still into it. Actually, I still really like the work. So it's not like, oh, I'm doing so much better work now. It's like I really think that project was really cool, and I'm proud that I was a part of it.
Yeah, that makes
But it was just like it was really a surprise to ever hear about it again, and to still be hearing about it because it was so long ago.
And then,
But
well, the other note I wanted to talk about was the antagonist. Um, so they were or are a collective in New York.
Were very
Were
much were, yeah.
okay at the time, and there was a bunch of you guys, and there were artists, filmmakers, and you would travel around with Ethan kind of at the helm, kind of organizing these trips.
Yeah.
That's how you guys got to Victoria. But while there, he was filming you the whole time, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So a lot of the contemporary adult music work is in one of his films called Self-Medicated. I
Mhm.
mean that in a way it's like kind of the that's like really the only footage of all of the work. I mean, it is he follows us for the whole year. I mean, we did it, I think that whole project was a maximum 2 years, but one of those years he was following us the whole time. So there is, it's well documented. The contemporary adult music was kind of an anti-social media project. Even though we did have a social media, we weren't trying to get tagged on our social media. We weren't trying to get. I mean, I remember the first mural where we got 1 million likes. It was the only reason I knew about it is because Chris was like looking up hashtags Lower East Side murals or Lower East Side art or lower or NYC. Um, I don't know what he was looking, but he was looking up hashtags,
Yeah.
and we were all over these hashtags that he could find, and that's how we found out that we're all over social media. But we didn't have a social media at sign on there or like a follow this or a follow that. We didn't know anything about that power. And it was just kind of at the very beginning of that time, you know, which separated, I mean, that's a huge difference between today. You would never think that, I don't know any street artist that's going to be like, no, I don't want social media presence. We like we didn't think that it was a we didn't really, it's not that we were against it, we really just didn't even consider it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, James. I appreciate it. Thank you for your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. That wraps up the debut episode of Behind the Press Release, a podcast where we explore the intersection of culture and art in Texas and beyond. I'm your host, Mercedes Romana, and thank you for listening. Also, a huge thank you to James Rubio, the New York City artist and muralist, who joined me today. He's one of the artists behind the collaborative project, Contemporary Adult Music, and we talked about those murals they painted in Victoria and learned that they have recently been painted over. But fear not, these works are still available online to check out. Go ahead and visit their Instagrams at Contemporary Adult Music or at Not James Rubio. We also talked about the Antagonist Art Movement, a movement in New York that James was a part of, and 2 films by the writer, director, producer, Ethan Minsker, The Dolls of Lisbon, as well as Self-Medicated. And I just did a little internet research, and they are both streaming on Prime Video as well as Tubi. So thank you for listening, and I hope you'll catch the next one. Bye.